Hey artists! Today we're going to learn about the art of collage! Go and grab your sketchbook and let's get started. So collage is a French word that means to glue or to stick. So you can probably guess what we're going to be doing today. For our materials, we'll need a base to put our collage onto, in this case it's our sketchbook, some scrap paper, which can come in the form of construction paper, scrapbook paper, magazines, newspaper, and any other paper you can think of. We'll also need a way to attach the paper onto our base, and while there are tons of tools you can use for attaching, today I'll be using regular old liquid glue and glue sticks. Last but not least, we'll need some scissors. One quick reminder, if you choose to use liquid glue like me, we'll need to use the just a dot, not a lot rule, so that our sketchbook doesn't become this ooey, gluey mess. I'll show you what that rule looks like in a minute, but first we're going to try experimenting with techniques. Let's try and get some shapes from paper. I'll be using construction paper and magazine paper. The first technique is cutting with scissors, which gives really clean, straight lines. To cut on a curve, we need to go slow and smooth, but no worries if you get a cut wrong. To attach our shapes, let's use that just a dot, not a lot rule. This is where you put one dot of liquid glue in the middle of your shape. When you press it down on the paper, it will be just enough glue to spread out to the edge without squeezing to the sides and causing a big mess. Now let's try and get those same shapes by ripping the paper. This method is a little bit trickier, especially with the more complicated shapes. Take your time with it. This technique is awesome for getting a unique, bumpy, sometimes fuzzy texture on the edge of your paper. And with magazine paper, the shape sometimes looks like it has a white outline in some areas. Super cool. Next, we're going to learn about a technique that uses an art concept called positive and negative space. First, I'm going to fold a piece of scrap paper in half and cut out a heart on the folded line, just like a Valentine's heart. The heart that was cut out of the paper shows our example of positive space, which means the area that is filled inside of our main shape. The scrap that was left over shows our example of negative space, which means the area that's around our main shape, the heart. So, just to recap, positive space is the heart, and negative space is the area around the heart. Using both positive and negative space in a collage gives lots of different options on how you can layer paper and represent different shapes. I noticed that as I was gluing down paper, it was hard to adjust after I'd put the glue down, so I made a note to plan out my design first before cutting and gluing everything down. One really cool way to plan out a design for a collage is using the explosion method. This is where you take a sketch and you break down all the different shapes you will need to turn it into a collage. Try it on your next project and see how it goes. In my example, I'm taking my sketch of a ladybug and breaking it down into all the circles and rectangles that I need. And now we're ready to take everything we learned and turn it into a final collage. I'm using magazines and construction paper to cut and layer the shapes of my ladybug, figuring out where I should put them before gluing them down. I tried to show positive space by adding black circles on one wing, and then I showed negative space by tearing out circles from the other wing, which looks super cool with the black circle underneath. I decided to change the antenna to better show the tearing technique, and after I was happy with how everything was layered and how my shapes looked, I glued everything down, and it looked pretty good! Let's finish with the reflection. Today I learned that I should plan out my shapes and layers before cutting and gluing, and using the explosion method helped me figure out how to do that. I also learned that using different kinds of paper gets some really fun effects on my collage. I hope you learned something new today. Thank you so much for watching. Keep creating, and I'll see you next time.